The Hidden Leaf Village bustled with its usual energy, the morning sun casting long shadows across the training grounds where shinobi hone their skills. Among them, Naruto Uzumaki stood out, not just for his bright orange jumpsuit or spiky blonde hair, but for the sheer determination burning in his blue eyes. He swung a kunai with practiced precision, the blade glinting as it cut through the air. Nearby, Sasuke Uchiha observed with a smirk, his Sharingan flickering to life as he analyzed Naruto's movements. Still too predictable, he taunted, darting forward with a flurry of shuriken. Naruto grinned, weaving hand signs with lightning speed. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A dozen copies of himself materialized, surrounding Sasuke in an instant. The two clashed in a whirlwind of punches, kicks, and kunai strikes, each countering the other's attacks with flawless timing. Sasuke's fireball jutsu roared toward Naruto, who countered with a spinning wind-enhanced kick, dispersing the flames. The ground trembled as Sakura Haruno joined the fray, her fist slamming into the earth with enough force to send shockwaves through the battlefield. "Quit showing off, you two," she scolded, though a proud smile tugged at her lips. Their rivalry was fierce, but their bond as Team 7 was unshakable. As the spar wound down, Kakashi Hatake emerged from the trees, his single visible eye crinkling in amusement. "Not bad," he said, flipping a page in his ever-present book. "But you'll need more than raw power for what's coming." His tone carried an unspoken weight, a hint of something darker lurking beneath the village's peaceful facade. Naruto wiped sweat from his brow, his gaze drifting to the Hokage monument. Yeah. We're ready for anything," he declared, though a flicker of unease stirred in his chest. Later that evening, Naruto found himself in the village archives, poring over dusty scrolls. He'd been having strange dreams, visions of a kunai unlike any other, its edge shimmering with an eerie light. The more he searched, the more he felt drawn to an ancient legend, a weapon said to fracture time itself. His fingers traced the faded ink, his pulse quickening. If such a thing existed, it could change everything. Meanwhile, deep in the shadows beyond the village, a hooded figure watched. His crimson eyes glowed with malice as he whispered to his followers. "The time nears. The boy will lead us to it." The air around them crackled with dark energy, the promise of chaos hanging heavy. Back in the village, Naruto tightened his grip on his ordinary kunai, unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. But one thing was certain, when the time came, he would be ready. The village of Konoha lay in uneasy silence, the air thick with the aftermath of the previous battle. Naruto Uzumaki tightened his grip on the kunai, its blade shimmering with an eerie, pulsating light that seemed to hum with the very essence of time itself. He could still feel the residual energy coursing through his arm, a reminder of the terrifying power he now wielded. Beside him, Sasuke's Sharingan flickered, scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. "We need to move," Sasuke muttered, his voice low but urgent. "If that thing attracts more enemies, we're sitting ducks out here." Naruto nodded, but before he could respond, a sharp crack echoed through the forest, like the sound of reality itself splitting apart. The ground beneath them trembled, and a jagged rift tore open mere feet away, spilling forth a wave of distorted energy. From within the fissure, a figure emerged, clad in tattered robes, their face obscured by a swirling mask of shadows. "So, this is the weapon that bends time," the stranger mused, their voice layered, as if multiple people spoke at once. "How amusing." Sakura lunged forward, her fist encased in chakra, but the stranger flickered out of existence before her strike could land. They reappeared behind her, a hand outstretched, fingers elongating unnaturally as they reached for her throat. Sasuke's Chidori flared to life, intercepting the attack with a crackle of lightning. The stranger recoiled, their form flickering like a dying flame. "Interesting," they remarked, tilting their head. "But predictable." Naruto didn't hesitate this time. He swung the kunai in a wide arc, and the air itself seemed to fracture. The stranger's body twisted, their limbs bending at impossible angles as time warped around them. For a moment, their form stabilized, revealing glimpses of a face, familiar, yet wrong. "Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto breathed, his stomach dropping. The figure laughed, the sound distorted. "Not quite." Sasuke's eyes narrowed. An imposter? Or something worse? Before they could press the attack, another explosion rocked the village, this one coming from the direction of the Hokage's office. Black smoke billowed into the sky, and distant shouts echoed through the streets. "A diversion?" Sakura hissed, already turning to sprint toward the chaos. Naruto gritted his teeth. "We can't split up. That's what they want." Sasuke grabbed his arm. "Then we end this fast." His Sharingan whirled, locking onto the stranger. Sakura, Keep them pinned. Naruto, on my signal, hit them with everything you've got. Sakura didn't need further instruction. She slammed her fist into the ground, sending a shockwave of force rippling outward. The earth shattered, jagged spikes of rock erupting to cage the stranger in. They dodged effortlessly, but Sasuke was already moving, his blade flashing in a deadly arc. The stranger parried with a kunai of their own, one that glowed with the same eerie light as Naruto's. Time seemed to stutter. Naruto's vision blurred as the world around him fractured into disjointed fragments. He saw Sasuke's attack reverse mid-strike, saw Sakura's fist unimpact the ground, saw the stranger step backward through their own movements as if rewinding a scroll. They're using time too. He realized, horror dawning. The kunai in the stranger's hand pulsed, and suddenly, Naruto felt a searing pain in his chest. He looked down, a wound that hadn't been there a second ago now bled freely. Wah? Sasuke cursed, his Sharingan struggling to keep up. They're altering the past few seconds. We can't counter what's already happened. Sakura's hands glowed green as she pressed them to Naruto's injury, her healing chakra knitting flesh back together. We need to disrupt their control over time. Naruto, can you override it? He wasn't sure. But he had to try. Gritting his teeth, Naruto channeled Kurama's chakra, the red aura flaring around him. He focused on the kunai, willing it to resonate with his own energy. The blade's glow intensified, and for a brief moment, the stranger's movement stuttered, as if time itself resisted their influence. Sasuke seized the opening. His Rinnegan activated, and with a single, devastating motion, he summoned a black chakra rod, driving it straight through the stranger's chest. The figure gasped, their mask cracking, revealing a face that shifted between countless identities, Kakashi, Jiraiya, even Naruto himself, before settling on one that made Naruto's blood run cold. Obito Uchiha. But it couldn't be. Obito was dead. The imposter grinned, blood trickling from their lips. You don't understand yet, they wheezed. This is just the beginning. With a final, shuddering breath, their body dissolved into motes of light, vanishing as if they had never existed. Silence fell. Naruto's hands trembled. What the hell was that? Sasuke exhaled sharply. A warning. Or a test. Sakura clenched her fists. Either way, we need to get back to the village. If they're attacking on multiple fronts. Another explosion cut her off, this one closer. The sky above Konoha darkened as swirling portals began to open, disgorging shadowy figures, each one wielding weapons that glowed with the same time-bending energy as Naruto's kunai. The stakes had just gotten higher. And Naruto had the sinking feeling that someone, maybe even someone they trusted, had betrayed them. The air hummed with tension as Naruto tightened his grip on the kunai, its blade shimmering with an eerie, time-bending glow. The battlefield was littered with the remnants of their last clash, shattered earth, scorched trees, and the lingering scent of ozone. Beside him, Sasuke's Sharingan flickered, analyzing every shift in the enemy's stance, while Sakura cracked her knuckles, her chakra-enhanced fists ready to strike. Then, without warning, a figure dropped from the canopy above, landing with a grace that sent a ripple through the ground. Clad in a midnight blue cloak with silver embroidery that shimmered like starlight, the newcomer straightened, revealing piercing violet eyes and a smirk that carried the weight of secrets. Well, she drawled, tilting her head. The legendary Team 7, reduced to playing with time like children with a new toy. Naruto bristled. Who the hell are you? Name's Ryoka, she said, flipping a dagger between her fingers. And I'm here to take that kunai off your hands before you tear the world apart with it. Sasuke's hand twitched toward his sword. Try it. Ryoka laughed, a sound like wind chimes laced with steel. Oh, I intend to. She moved faster than any of them expected. One moment she stood 10 paces away, the next she was in Naruto's face, her dagger flashing toward his wrist. He barely yanked the kunai back in time, but her follow-up kick sent him skidding across the dirt. Sakura lunged, her fist aimed at Ryoka's ribs, but the woman twisted mid-air, using Sakura's momentum to flip over her and land behind Sasuke. Sasuke spun, his sword clashing against her dagger in a shower of sparks. You're good, he admitted through gritted teeth. Flattery won't save you, Ryoka taunted, before disengaging and weaving a rapid series of hand signs. Wind release, gale serpent. A vortex of razor-sharp wind spiraled toward them, forcing Team 7 to scatter. Naruto rolled to his feet, already summoning clones. All right, if she wants a fight, a dozen shadow clones charged, kunai drawn, but Ryoka didn't falter. Her movements were a blur, dodging and countering with precision, each strike dismantling a clone with brutal efficiency. One clone managed to land a hit, only for Ryoka to vanish in a puff of smoke, reappearing behind the real Naruto. Predictable, she murmured, her dagger aimed for his back. A kunai intercepted hers at the last second. Sasuke, eyes now spinning with the mangekyo, yanked Naruto aside. "Pay attention, idiot." Naruto grinned. Yeah. Teamwork, right?" Ryoka's smirk faltered for the first time. Annoying. She backflipped, putting distance between them, then raised her hands again. "But let's see how well you work together against this." She slammed her palms together, and the ground beneath them erupted in a storm of earth and wind, forcing them to leap apart. Sakura, seizing an opening, dashed forward, her fist glowing with chakra. Ryoka blocked with crossed arms, but the force of the blow sent her skidding back, her boots carving grooves in the soil. For the first time, she looked impressed. "Not bad, medic." Sakura didn't answer, already pivoting into another strike. Ryoka countered with a whirlwind kick, but Sasuke was there, his sword locking against her dagger again. Naruto, meanwhile, channeled chakra into the time-shattering kunai, its glow intensifying. Ryoka's eyes widened. "Don't." Too late. Naruto slashed downward, and the air itself fractured. A jagged rift opened, swallowing trees, rocks, even the very light around them. Time stuttered, Sasuke's sword froze mid-swing, Sakura's hair floated as if suspended in water. Only Ryoka seemed unaffected, her violet eyes blazing with fury. "You fool." She lunged, not at Naruto, but past him, hands flying through seals. Space-time barrier. A translucent dome flared to life around them just as the rift expanded, its edges screeching against her barrier like nails on glass. The world snapped back into motion. Sasuke stumbled, disoriented, while Sakura gasped, clutching her head. Naruto stared at the kunai, then at Ryoka, who was breathing heavily, her barrier flickering. "You have no idea what you're playing with," she hissed. "That kunai isn't just a weapon, it's a key. And there are things far worse than me who want it." Naruto's grip tightened. "Then why don't you explain instead of attacking us?" Ryoka's glare could have melted steel. "Because trust is a luxury none of us can afford." A tense silence followed, broken only by the distant cry of a hawk. Sasuke finally sheathed his sword, though his Sharingan remained active. "If you're not our enemy, then what are you?" Ryoka exhaled, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "A survivor. Someone who's seen what happens when time fractures. And if you don't hand over that kunai, you'll see it too." Sakura crossed her arms. "And we're just supposed to believe you?" Ryoka's lips curled. "No. But you're smart enough to know I'm not lying." Naruto looked between his team and the mysterious woman, the kunai's weight suddenly heavier in his hand. Whatever choice he made next would change everything. And Ryoka knew it. The air crackled with tension as Naruto tightened his grip on the kunai, its blade humming with an eerie, time-bending resonance. The battlefield was littered with fallen shinobi, their bodies sprawled across the ruined landscape like discarded puppets. Across from him, Sasuke's Sharingan burned crimson, his expression unreadable. "You still don't get it, do you?" Sasuke said, his voice low and dangerous. "That weapon isn't a gift, it's a curse." Naruto's breath hitched. He had trusted Sasuke, fought alongside him despite the past, but now doubt gnawed at him. The kunai pulsed in his hand, whispering secrets he couldn't decipher. Before he could respond, a shadow blurred between them, Kakashi, his former sensei, landing with a quiet thud. His single visible eye flicked between them, exhaustion and resolve warring in his gaze. "Stop this," Kakashi ordered. "Before it's too late." Sasuke scoffed. "It's already too late." With a flick of his wrist, he unleashed a surge of black flames, Amaterasu. The fire roared toward Naruto, but the kunai reacted before he did, slicing through the air and fracturing time itself. The flames froze mid-eruption, suspended like a grotesque painting. Naruto's heart pounded. He hadn't meant to do that. The kunai was learning him now, adapting to his instincts. Then came the betrayal. From behind, a blade pierced Kakashi's chest, glinting crimson as it emerged. Naruto's world shattered. "No!" he screamed, but the attacker was already vanishing in a swirl of leaves, Sakura. Her green eyes, once warm, were cold as steel. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though her voice held no remorse. Sasuke smirked, and Naruto finally understood. This had been their plan all along. Kakashi collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. Naruto lunged, but time twisted again, the kunai dragging him backward against his will. He reappeared a second earlier, just in time to see Sakura's blade already in motion. Desperation clawed at him, he couldn't let this happen. With a roar, he hurled the kunai, not at Sakura, but at the ground between them. The impact sent a shockwave through reality, splintering the earth and sending Sakura stumbling back. But the cost was immediate. The kunai's glow dimmed, its power draining. Sasuke seized the opening. Lightning crackled around his hand as he thrust Chidori straight for Naruto's heart. Naruto barely dodged, the edge of the technique grazing his ribs, searing flesh. He countered with a Rasengan, but Sasuke twisted midair, kicking him square in the chest. Naruto skidded backward, gasping. His vision swam. The kunai lay just out of reach, its glow flickering like a dying star. Sakura advanced, her fists clenched. "You don't understand what's at stake," she said. "This world is broken. We're fixing it." Naruto's throat tightened. "By killing Kakashi? By betraying me?" His voice cracked. "What happened to you?" Sakura's expression wavered, just for a moment. Then she hardened. "We saw the truth. The kunai doesn't just shatter time, it reveals it. The future. It's worse than you can imagine." A cold dread settled in Naruto's gut. Had they seen something he hadn't? Was that why they turned? He glanced at Kakashi, still bleeding, still fighting for consciousness. No. There had to be another way. With a sudden burst of speed, Naruto dove for the kunai. Sasuke was faster. A kunai of his own flashed, slicing Naruto's forearm. Pain flared, but Naruto gritted his teeth and kept moving. His fingers brushed the hilt. The world exploded in white. Time unraveled around him, scenes flashing like shattered glass, Konoha in ruins, friends lying lifeless, a figure cloaked in shadows wielding the kunai not to mend time, but to erase it entirely. The vision vanished as quickly as it came, leaving Naruto trembling. Now he understood. The kunai wasn't just a weapon, it was a key. And someone else wanted it. Sasuke lunged again, but Naruto was ready. He channeled every ounce of chakra into a single, desperate move. Shadow Clone Rasengan Barrage. Dozens of clones erupted around him, each spinning a Rasengan, their combined force shaking the earth. Sasuke's eyes widened. He couldn't dodge them all. But Sakura intervened. With a single, earth-shattering punch, she obliterated half the clones, the shockwave sending Naruto flying. He crashed hard, ribs screaming. The kunai clattered from his grip, skidding toward Kakashi. With the last of his strength, Kakashi snatched the blade. His fingers trembled, but his voice was steady. "Enough." He plunged the kunai into his own chest. A deafening silence followed. Then, light. Time itself screamed as the world fractured, reality bending inward. Naruto reached out, but it was too late. Kakashi was gone. The kunai was gone. And in their place stood the true enemy, a figure cloaked in shifting shadows, their voice a chorus of 1,000 whispers. "At last," they said. "The door is open." Naruto's blood ran cold. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was war. And he had just lost his only weapon. The figure raised a hand, and the sky split in two. The Hidden Leaf village lay in ruins, smoke curling from shattered buildings as the echoes of battle still hung heavy in the air. Naruto Uzumaki tightened his grip on the kunai, its blade shimmering with an eerie, fractured light, a weapon capable of bending time itself. But even with such power, the enemy before them seemed unstoppable. Kaguya's descendants, the Otsutsuki, had returned with a vengeance, their celestial might reducing entire battalions to dust. Sasuke's Sharingan blazed as he analyzed the battlefield, his voice strained. "They're adapting to our attacks too fast. If we don't find a way to disrupt their coordination, we're finished." Naruto gritted his teeth, feeling the weight of every second slipping away. The kunai hummed in his palm, its temporal energy unstable. He could feel it, each use risked unraveling reality itself. Kakashi materialized beside them, his single visible eye sharp with urgency. "We need to buy time. Sakura's team is working on a sealing array, but it won't be ready unless we hold them off for at least another hour." Naruto exhaled sharply, then grinned. "Then we'll give him hell." The Otsutsuki warriors descended like falling stars, their movements a blur of devastating precision. Naruto launched forward, kunai flashing as he slashed through the air, not at the enemy, but at time itself. The world fractured, and for a heartbeat, the battlefield rewound. An Otsutsuki's attack faltered mid-strike, their advantage stolen by the kunai's temporal rupture. Sasuke seized the opening, his Susanoo blade carving through the disoriented foe. But the enemy was learning. One of the Otsutsuki, a towering figure wielding a staff of crackling energy, smirked. Pathetic. You rely on stolen power. He raised his weapon, and the ground beneath them erupted in a storm of gravity wells, pulling the shinobi off balance. Naruto barely dodged as a chunk of earth the size of a house hurtled past him, crushing a nearby watchtower. Sakura's voice crackled through their calms. We found something. Their chakra networks have a delay when switching between abilities, half a second, but it's there. Sasuke's Rinnegan flared. Half a second, that's our window. Naruto's mind raced. Half a second wasn't enough for a normal attack, but with the kunai, maybe. He met Sasuke's gaze, and in that instant, their old rivalry burned into unspoken understanding. The next assault came like a hurricane. The Otsutsuki unleashed barrages of energy orbs, each capable of leveling mountains. Naruto weaved through them, his clones exploding in bursts of smoke as decoys. Then, as predicted, the enemy paused, just for that half-second flicker, to recalibrate. Now. Naruto hurled the kunai. Sasuke's ameno flashed, swapping its position mid-flight to embed it directly into the Otsutsuki's chest. The kunai's temporal energy erupted, freezing the enemy in a stasis field. The others faltered, their synchronization broken. It was the opening they needed. Kakashi's lightning blade speared through one foe, while Sakura's fist cratered the ground beneath another. But the victory was fleeting. The lead Otsutsuki snarled, his body flickering as he resisted the time lock. You insects, he hissed, his chakra flaring violently. Naruto felt the kunai's energy destabilizing. If it shattered completely, the backlash could erase them all. We gotta finish this, he roared. Sasuke's Susanoo wings spread wide. One last strike. Everything we've got. The world seemed to slow as they moved in unison. Naruto's Rasengan, infused with the remnants of the kunai's power, spiraled with distorted time. Sasuke's blade crackled with Amaterasu flames. Together, they struck. The explosion of light swallowed the battlefield. When the dust cleared, the Otsutsuki lay broken, their celestial forms flickering like dying embers. But the cost was clear, the kunai's blade had cracked, its power nearly spent. Sakura rushed to them, her hands already glowing with healing chakra. We did it. But they'll send more. Naruto stared at the fractured weapon, then clenched his fist. Then we get stronger. Fast. The clock was ticking. The Otsutsuki wouldn't stop. And next time, they wouldn't hold back. The battlefield trembled as Naruto's kunai pulsed with an eerie, golden light, its edge distorting the very air around it. Time itself seemed to shudder with each swing, fragments of reality splintering like glass. Across from him, Sasuke's Rinnegan blazed crimson, his Susanoo armor crackling with amethyst lightning. You're playing with forces you don't understand, Naruto. He snarled, lunging forward with a blade of pure chakra. Naruto barely twisted aside, the kunai humming as it carved a jagged rift in space, a slash that sent shockwaves rippling backward through time, forcing Sasuke to stagger mid-strike as the past version of himself flickered into existence for a split second before dissolving. Kakashi and Sakura weren't faring any better. The enemy, a shadowy figure draped in swirling temporal energy, moved like a phantom, flickering in and out of existence faster than even the Sharingan could track. Kakashi's Kamui strained to keep up, his forehead slick with sweat as he warped chunks of debris into the pocket dimension, only for them to reappear seconds later, hurtling back at lethal speeds. Sakura's fists cratered the ground with each punch, but the foe anticipated her every move, sidestepping with infuriating precision. He's reading time itself. She panted, barely rolling away as a delayed explosion from one of her own strikes detonated behind her. Then, Naruto roared, his Kurama cloak erupting into a blazing inferno of nine-tailed chakra. The kunai's glow intensified, its power synchronizing with his own energy. If he manipulates time, then we'll break it, he bellowed, slashing downward in a wide arc. The blade didn't just cut through the air, it severed the flow of moments, creating a cascading rupture that forced their enemy to materialize fully, his form flickering erratically as the temporal distortions destabilized him. Sasuke seized the opening, his Susanoo's massive sword descending like a guillotine, but the foe twisted, catching the blade between his palms, only for Sakura to drop from above, her fist wreathed in chakra-enhanced devastation. The impact sent shockwaves tearing through the battlefield, cratering the earth for miles. Still, the enemy grinned, his form reassembling from scattered fragments of time. You fight well, he mused, but time is my domain. With a snap of his fingers, the world lurched, Naruto felt his muscles lock mid-motion, Sasuke's Susanoo flickering like a dying flame. The past and present blurred, their movements rewinding and replaying in disjointed loops. Kakashi's Kamui portal collapsed in on itself, and Sakura's fist froze inches from the enemy's face. But Naruto refused to yield. With a guttural scream, he channeled every ounce of his will into the kunai, its glow flaring like a supernova. "Time doesn't belong to you," he roared, plunging the blade into the ground. The resulting shockwave wasn't just force, it was a temporal quake, a backlash so violent it shattered the enemy's control. Reality stuttered, then snapped back into place with a deafening boom. Sasuke didn't waste the chance. His Rinnegan swirled, Amino Tejikara swapping his position with Naruto's in an instant. His hand clamped onto the enemy's shoulder, black flames of Amaterasu erupting in a searing spiral. The foe howled, but before he could react, Sakura was there again, her fist connecting with his ribs in a blow that sent him hurtling skyward. Kakashi's Kamui snared him mid-air, the dimensional vortex tearing at his form, but just as he was about to be consumed, the enemy twisted, his own hand glowing with the distorted energy. A temporal reversal rippled outward, undoing the Kamui's pull. The battle had reached its breaking point. Naruto's body burned with exhaustion, but his spirit blazed brighter. He exchanged a glance with Sasuke, wordless, yet understood. With a nod, they moved as one. Naruto hurled the kunai like a javelin, its path warping space itself, while Sasuke's perfect Susanoo manifested fully, its colossal blade descending in a synchronized strike. The enemy raised his hands, weaving a barrier of fractured time, but the kunai pierced through, its power unraveling his defenses. The Susanoo sword followed, cleaving downward with apocalyptic force. The impact shook the heavens. Light swallowed the battlefield, blinding and deafening. When it faded, the enemy knelt, his form flickering like a dying ember. "Impossible," he gasped. Naruto stood over him, panting, the kunai's glow dimming but still pulsing in his grip. "Time isn't yours to control," he said, voice raw but unwavering. "It's everyone's." The enemy's laugh was hollow. "Perhaps. But this isn't over." With one final surge of energy, he dissolved into fragments of light, vanishing into the time stream. Silence fell, heavy and electric. The team stood amidst the ruins of their battle, bodies battered but unbroken. Sasuke's Susanoo flickered out, his breathing ragged. "He'll be back," he muttered. Naruto clenched the kunai tighter. "Then we'll be ready." The storm wasn't over. But for now, they had won. The battlefield was a maelstrom of destruction, the very air crackling with the remnants of chakra and the echoes of desperate clashes. Naruto Uzumaki stood at the heart of it all, his breath ragged, his body trembling from exhaustion. The kunai in his hand, the one that had shattered time itself, glowed with an eerie, unstable light, its power barely contained. Opposite him, the enemy, a being of pure malice who had sought to unravel reality, grinned through bloodied teeth. "You can't win," the figure taunted, its voice a grating whisper that slithered through the ruins. "Time bends to my will, not yours." Naruto tightened his grip on the kunai, feeling its weight, not just physical, but the burden of what it represented. This was it. The final moment. The defining strike. Around him, his allies lay battered but unbroken. Sasuke's Sharingan flickered weakly, his Rinnegan strained from overuse. Sakura's fists were raw, her healing chakra nearly depleted. Even Kurama's voice in his mind was faint, the Nine Tails' energy pushed to its limit. But they weren't giving up. None of them would. With a roar, Naruto lunged, the kunai carving a path through the air, not just through space, but through time itself. The enemy countered, reality distorting as their blades clashed. For a fraction of a second, everything froze. Then, impact. The kunai's power erupted in a blinding cascade, fractures spider-webbing through existence. Naruto felt the moment stretch, saw glimpses of past battles, future possibilities, the threads of fate unraveling and reweaving before his eyes. His muscles screamed in protest, but he pushed forward, his will overriding the agony. The enemy's smirk faltered. "Impossible." Naruto didn't hesitate. He twisted the kunai, and with a sound like shattering glass, time itself splintered. The enemy's form flickered, destabilizing, their very existence unraveling. "This isn't just my power," Naruto growled, his voice raw. "It's everyone's. Every person who believed in me, who fought beside me, this is their strength too." The kunai flared brighter, the fractures sealing, reality stitching itself back together, but differently. The enemy let out a final, guttural scream before dissolving into nothingness, erased not just from the present, but from all of time. Silence. Then, collapse. Naruto hit the ground hard, his vision swimming. Sasuke was at his side in an instant, dragging him up. "Idiot," he muttered, but there was no venom in it. Sakura's hands glowed green as she pressed them to his wounds, her tears mixing with the dirt on her face. "You did it," she whispered. The world around them was different. The sky, once choked with darkness, was clear. The ruins of the battlefield seemed lighter, as if the weight of the enemy's influence had been lifted. But the cost was evident. The kunai lay broken at Naruto's feet, its power spent. He reached for it, fingers trembling. "It's over," he murmured. But was it? The aftermath was immediate. Villages that had been on the brink of destruction were whole again. Friends who had fallen in battle stood among the living, confused but unharmed. The timeline had been rewritten, their sacrifices undone, but their memories remained. The pain, the struggle, the bonds forged in desperation, those couldn't be erased. Days later, as the sun set over a recovering Konoha, Naruto stood atop the Hokage monument, staring at the horizon. Sasuke joined him, arms crossed. "You changed everything," he said simply. Naruto smiled, though it was tired. "We did." The future was uncertain. The kunai's power had reshaped the world, but the scars, both seen and unseen, lingered. Yet, as the wind carried the laughter of children below, as Sakura's voice called them down for dinner, Naruto knew one thing for certain: no matter what came next, they'd face it together. And that was enough.